Think you're built for the streets? Think again. Flashy chains and tough talk might fool some, but when a wannabe gangster steps into the world of real criminals, reality hits like a freight train. The streets don't respect image, they bow to power, and the ones who truly run the game don't need to prove a thing. So what happens when a small-time hustler dares to challenge a true kingpin? Let's dive into the ruthless, unforgiving world where fakes get exposed, and only the real survive. The Legend of LR5. Under the dim light of a forgotten alley, a young street gangster found himself face to face with a legend. He had heard many stories of hard lives and wild betrayals, but nothing could prepare him for the man known as Jesus Gregorio Villanueva Rodriguez, or simply LR5. LR5 was not just any gangster. He was a real force in the criminal world, a leader whose life and death still echoed through dangerous streets. More than a decade had passed since LR5 met his tragic end, yet his legacy lived on. As the head of Gente Nueva, the elite hitman group of the Sinaloa cartel, LR5 was known for both his bold moves and his fatal mistakes. His downfall came in a moment as shocking as it was ironic. A rival hitman named El Nino used LR5's own gun to end his life. It was a scene captured in a chilling video, a moment that still haunts the underworld. Before his final days, LR5 had been one of the most trusted men of the notorious El Chapo. His power was clear on the day he planned a massacre in Veracruz, where 35 lives were lost on a busy street. This brutal act was meant to send a message.
This is the first time ever in the history of Veracruz State that this kind of crime has occurred.
Gente Nueva claimed they fought against the extortion of the Zetas, promising no more harm to innocent lives. However, the actions of these hitmen were far from the justice they claimed to serve. Over time, Gente Nueva faded from Veracruz and moved to Chihuahua, where gang wars raged near Ciudad Juarez. Their violent acts grew even more savage. Attacks like the one at the Rio Rosas bar, which left 11 people dead, showed a ruthless side that did not spare even those who were not part of any cartel. LR5's end came when he decided to go against his own orders. He dared to attack the powerful Jalisco New Generation cartel, known as CJNG, a move that cost him dearly. His boldness turned into a fatal mistake. His death reminded everyone in the criminal world that even the strongest can fall. The young street gangster watched in awe as the tale of LR5 unfolded, learning that a real gangster's life was filled with danger, betrayal, and harsh lessons. Erik Tadeo Ramirez. Erik Tadeo Ramirez was a brash man who thought he could outsmart anyone. One night, feeling unstoppable, he stole $50 from the feared cartel Del Noreste, a group known for using chainsaws and vats of acid to silence their enemies. Instead of keeping quiet, Erik couldn't help but boast. He called a mysterious woman and bragged about his daring theft, not knowing that his loud pride would soon bring him face to face with real terror.
Stealing thousands of dollars from a Mexican cartel and then disappear just 2 hours later.
Erik believed that by being on U.S. soil, he was safe. He felt that American citizenship and his street smarts would protect him from any harm. But the cartel Del Noreste had no respect for foolish arrogance. Born from the notorious Los Zetas, a group of elite soldiers turned ruthless criminals, the cartel had built its name on brutal acts and an unyielding code of silence. On the night of March 24, 2023, while Erik was at his home in Laredo, Texas, his life took a sharp, terrifying turn. In the dead of night, 3 armed men in a blue Dodge pickup truck broke into his house. They showed no mercy as they stormed in, grabbing Erik by force. His girlfriend and sister screamed in terror, and even the neighbors, awakened by the chaos, could only watch in horror. The kidnappers cared only about one thing: taking Erik to Mexico and making him pay for his insolence. The journey was long and filled with dread. As the truck roared through dark, lonely roads, Erik's mind raced with regret. He had crossed a line that no street thug should ever dare to cross. In a desperate moment, when the truck neared an international bridge and a police car appeared in the distance, Erik tried to escape. He flung open the passenger door and jumped, hoping for a miracle. But his dream of freedom was quickly crushed. The kidnappers pulled him back inside the truck, leaving him with the bitter taste of defeat and fear. Erik's fate was sealed by his own arrogance. The $50,000 he had stolen was more than just money. It was a symbol of disrespect to a cartel that thrived on power and fear.
Witnesses, they actually arrived less than 2 hours later. The marked masked men, they assaulted Ramirez. According to the FBI, you can actually see the image of the home.
For Cartel del Noreste, every dollar taken was a challenge, a dare to show that they could make anyone pay. And now, Erik was their target. In the harsh world of gangs and cartels, respect is earned by silence and strength. Erik had let his mouth do the talking, and it had cost him dearly. As the truck disappeared into the night, carrying Erik away to a fate unknown, one thing was clear: pride and foolish courage will always be met with a price too high to pay. A TikToker's bold challenge. In the fast-paced world of social media, brave acts and wild challenges are common, but few have stirred as much controversy as the latest dare by a TikTok user known as Illuminati6. This daring individual accepted a dangerous challenge from a follower to insult the notorious leader of the powerful CJNG, Nemesio Ruben Oseguera Cervantes, commonly referred to by his alias, El Mencho.
The Mexican drug kingpin known as El Mencho. He's blamed for a flood of narcotics into the U.S.
With little thought for the consequences, Illuminati6 stepped into a dangerous arena where words can be as lethal as bullets. In his video, he did more than simply speak. He issued a bold threat aimed at a man known for his ruthless power. His words were harsh and reckless, echoing a dangerous tradition on the internet. 3 years earlier, a similar act by another YouTuber ended in tragedy when that man was shot and killed in a bar in Zapopan. Though no one has been held responsible, many suspect that the feared gang leader, El Mencho, may have been behind the grim turn of events.
The DEA says this man is a major part of the problem.
As Illuminati6 posted his own video filled with daring threats, the messages quickly spread, sparking a mix of awe and fear. In it, he boldly declared his defiance with simple yet striking words: "I am immortal. I am untouchable." Some followers eagerly awaited a response from El Mencho, while others worried that these challengers were inviting a deadly fate. But not long after the video was posted, it seemed Illuminati6 began to realize the real danger of his actions and, in a moment of clarity, offered a heartfelt apology. In his follow-up, he admitted that he had let his excitement get the best of him. He explained that the pressure from his followers had pushed him to say things he did not truly mean. "I am sorry," he said, his voice trembling as he pleaded with El Mencho not to take revenge. He reminded everyone that he was only human, with a family and a life worth protecting. His apology was simple and sincere, and it revealed a glimpse of the fear that had crept into his heart. Almost immediately after his apology, Illuminati6 disappeared from social media. His account went private, and though he made a brief return on another channel, he soon vanished altogether. This sudden exit left fans and critics alike questioning what really happened behind the scenes. Was it the heavy hand of El Mencho that silenced him, or had the weight of his own reckless words become too much to bear? The deadly fall of Landy Paraga. In 2022, Landy Paraga from Los Rios province stepped into the spotlight at the Miss Ecuador pageant. With her dazzling smile, stylish looks, and a life filled with luxury vacations and designer clothes, she quickly became a favorite on social media. But behind her glamorous image lay a secret that would pull her into a dangerous world. It turned out that Landy was involved with Leandro Norero, a powerful drug lord known as El Patron.
The case takes yet another turn when we learn the one-time beauty queen had links to a known drug trafficker.
Norero controlled a vast cartel that ran much of Ecuador's drug trade. Despite her image as a beauty queen, Landy was drawn into a life far removed from the glitz of the pageant stage. A major investigation called Metastasis uncovered text messages that revealed their secret affair. These messages showed that Landy knew about Norero's illegal activities, linking her directly to the dark side of the cartel world.
They are in a relationship that appears to be extramarital, and so there's a lot of complications.
The news sent shockwaves through the country. People could hardly believe that a rising beauty star was tied to a world of crime and violence. Yet, as more details emerged, it became clear that glamour and danger often mix in unexpected ways.
Certainly, anyone who lives a very public-facing internet life.
When Norero was arrested, his empire began to crumble. His wife, Lina Romero, was as ruthless as she was determined to protect their empire. With Norero behind bars, Lina moved quickly to maintain control and secure her power. Tragedy struck when Norero was murdered in prison later in 2022, but the worst was still to come. On April 29, 2024, Landy and her new boyfriend were shot dead in a restaurant in Cedo.
And since her murder, that number has jumped to 183,000.
It is believed that a simple Instagram post showing her meal accidentally revealed her location to a hitman. This killing, thought to be a revenge act by Lina Romero, was a stark reminder that in the world of real gangsters, betrayal and violence are never far away. The fateful encounter of Fofo Marquez.
Assaulted the victim in a parking lot in Naucalpan, State of Mexico.
Fofo Marquez was a well-known influencer in Mexico, famous for showing off his luxurious lifestyle. Born on July 15, 1997, he grew up in a rich family that gave him every chance to enjoy life's best things. With a collection of expensive cars and nights spent in the hottest clubs, Fofo built an image of wealth and success. His Instagram account boasted over 3 million followers, and his TikTok videos attracted even more fans. He was known for his bold attitude and his belief that money could solve any problem. On July 7, 2022, Fofo decided to make a statement. In a daring stunt in Guadalajara, he parked 3 luxury cars on the busy Matuti-Remus Bridge. This act was meant to show off his power and create chaos that he could capture on camera. Fofo boasted to his online audience, saying, "This is what money and power can do. I closed it here because I wanted to. Illuminati." His words, filled with arrogance, did not sit well with many. Almost instantly, his reckless behavior went viral. People on social media were shocked and angry. Many could not believe that someone would endanger public safety just for the sake of attention. The mayor of Guadalajara did not stay silent either. He threatened legal action against Fofo for causing such a disturbance. As a result, TikTok banned his account, and Fofo was forced to issue an apology while serving community service under the very bridge he had blocked. But the situation took a darker turn when the real world of danger stepped in. The notorious CJNG soon made its presence felt. A threatening message appeared online from an anonymous account, warning Fofo that disrespecting their authority would bring serious trouble. The message was clear and cold. If you ever step into Guadalajara, neither you nor your money would save you from us. This was the moment when the flashy world of a street gangster met the harsh reality of a real gangster. Frightened by the cartel's power, Fofo quickly sought safety. He took refuge in his father's mansion, a place guarded by armed security. Even there, the fear was constant. Fofo avoided looking out of windows and kept a transceiver close by so he could call for help if needed. What had started as a quest for online fame had turned into a nightmare that he could not escape. Drowning in betrayal. In the dark and dangerous world of drugs and crime, one name struck fear into everyone: Ronaldo Fuentes Campos, also known as El Taliban.
So, fugitive drug lord Taliban, who stole cartel's 450 pounds.
He started as a street gangster and grew into a powerful drug kingpin, controlling massive shipments of cocaine and millions in cash. His life was built on betrayal, greed, and brutal violence. El Taliban earned his notorious name through his ruthless actions. In his rise to power, he ruled with an iron fist. No one dared cross him because the punishment was swift and savage. But as his wealth and influence grew, so did his desire for more. Fuentes was given a major job: to smuggle 200 kilos of old cocaine, worth over $10 million, to the British Virgin Islands. Instead of following orders, he planned a daring double cross. He dumped the huge shipment into the ocean and lied, claiming that the Venezuelan Coast Guard had intercepted the drugs. Not stopping there, Fuentes returned to the scene to recover the floating cocaine. He repackaged the drugs and planned to sell them on his own terms on a different Caribbean island. This bold move angered the powerful cartel bosses, who had long relied on trust and loyalty among their ranks. In a world where betrayal is met with extreme violence, Fuentes' actions sealed his fate. On a hot day near Martinique, His final moment was captured in a chilling video. Fuentes was seen with his hands tied behind his back with zip ties, his body battered and bruised. Blood trickled down the back of his head as he was brutally beaten. A heavy weight was fastened around his waist, and he was gagged so he could not cry out for help. The gangsters who had once trusted him now forced him into the cold, dark Caribbean Sea, leaving him to drown. The brutal murder of El Taliban is a grim reminder of the harsh rules in the world of crime. He had once been a feared leader, owning lavish homes, expensive cars, and speedboats in Venezuela and the Dominican Republic. In his days on the streets, he survived a deadly assassination attempt in Caracas, when over 60 bullets were fired at his armored SUV, and he escaped with his life while 3 of his bodyguards died. Yet, his greed and betrayal ultimately led to his downfall. Vows and vendettas. When a street gangster meets a real gangster, nothing stays normal for long. In January 2020, a wedding meant for love quickly turned into a scene of terror and heartbreak. Cum Lizabeth Ortiz, known on the streets as Laura, was set to marry her longtime partner, a fellow criminal known as El Calamardo. But as vows were about to be exchanged, the day descended into chaos. The church in Guanajuato buzzed with hope and soft music that masked a deadly plan.
I promise to be true to you, in good times and in bad.
Cum was no stranger to the dark side of life. She was linked to the Cartel de Santa Rosa de Lima, a gang run by her own brother, Jose Antonio Yepes Ortiz, called El Maro. Under his lead, the cartel had grown fast by stealing fuel from pipelines and trafficking drugs, gathering power and wealth. Yet with power came many enemies. Their fiercest rival was the notorious CJNG. For years, these two gangs clashed in the streets, leaving a trail of bloodshed and loss. The rivalries had darkened the region, turning celebrations into potential battlefields. On that fateful day, the tension was so thick you could almost taste it. Outside the church, 3 dark vehicles parked silently. They were not there as guests, but as harbingers of death. Just as the priest began to recite the wedding vows, heavy gunfire shattered the calm. Masked men in bulletproof vests stormed the venue with ruthless precision. In mere seconds, the happy day was overwhelmed by screams, panic, and a hail of bullets. Cum barely had time to react. In the blink of an eye, her groom, El Calamardo, was snatched away by the attackers. The guests scrambled in confusion as chaos took over. Amid the turmoil, a young motorcyclist lost his life, caught in the violent crossfire. The attack was not random. It was a cold, calculated message aimed at El Maro and his gang. As quickly as they arrived, the killers vanished into the dark streets, leaving behind a trail of grief and a wedding hall filled with disbelief. In the months that followed, on August 2, 2020, Mexican authorities launched a dramatic raid and captured El Maro. Although his arrest shook the criminal underworld, the brutal spirit of the violence in Guanajuato lived on. El Mencho's revenge.
He's a rising Mexican drug lord named Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, known simply as El Mencho.
In the gritty streets of Culiacan, where the smell of street food mixes with a constant tension in the air, a young street gangster once believed he knew what power was all about. He had spent his life dodging trouble and scraping by on the rough rules of the neighborhood, but nothing in his wildest dreams could have prepared him for the day he met a real gangster, a man whose very name struck fear and commanded respect: El Mencho. El Mencho's journey was not always one of violence and fear. Born on February 28, 1958, in the heart of Sinaloa, he was raised in a world where drugs and guns were a way of life. As a boy, he learned early how to survive on the mean streets, growing close to dangerous figures like Javier Torres Felix and Ismael Zambada. By the 1990s, his quick rise in the Sinaloa cartel showed that he was not like the others. When his own brother was arrested in 2004, El Mencho seized control of major cocaine routes and earned his place among the most feared men in the underworld. Yet one day would change everything.
For the first time, cartel kingpin El Mencho tonight is a $15 million man.
On April 18th, 28, his life took a dark turn. His beloved son, Antonio Torres, who was only 20 years old, was ambushed by sicarios from the Beltran Leyva organization. Antonio had been standing outside the health ministry with his sister and aunt when the attackers struck. Even though he fought back against a kidnapping attempt, there was no escape from the bullets that ended his young life on the spot. In the chaos, his sister was wounded in her arm and shoulder, while his aunt suffered a painful shot in her leg. The killers fled quickly, leaving behind an escape vehicle filled with evidence that would soon ignite a fury inside El Mencho. That day, the street gangster learned that true power was not just about surviving on mean streets, it was about making others pay. The loss of his son drove El Mencho into a deep, cold rage that transformed him into something more than a mere thug. With his heart burning for revenge, he set out on a brutal campaign against the Beltran Leyva organization. Every step he took was fueled by the desire to make those responsible feel his pain. El Mencho's thirst for vengeance led him to commit acts so savage that even hardened criminals whispered his name with fear.
A little-known Mexican drug lord named El Mencho was to be considered the city's most wanted fugitive.
In one chilling episode, he targeted Municipal Police Commander Roberto Carlos Barceló Villagran. The commander, a respected officer, was captured and tortured in a way that no one could have imagined. His back was sliced open, his legs were severed, and his head was removed while he was still alive. This horrifying display was meant to send a clear message. No one was safe if they crossed El Mencho. Soon, the streets of Culiacan turned into rivers of blood as his orders for execution spread throughout the city. For the young street gangster watching from the shadows, it was a lesson in terror and power. Here was a man who had turned personal tragedy into a deadly crusade, a man who became known as El Lunatico for his descent into madness. Over 30 members of the Beltran Leyva organization fell at his hands, and hundreds more met violent ends under his orders. The once familiar city transformed into a war zone, where every corner held the threat of sudden, brutal death. As the violence grew, the Mexican government could no longer stand by. In September 2008, 2,000 troops were sent into Culiacan to try to put an end to the bloodshed. In one daring raid, authorities stormed one of El Mencho's hideouts. They seized weapons, drugs, and even an armored vehicle. But perhaps the most damning piece of evidence was a photo of him with his nephew, Manuel Torres. This image spread quickly across the media and only added fuel to an already raging fire. The United States, too, took notice. By 2011, El Mencho was blacklisted under the Foreign Narcotics Kingpin Act, a move that meant his days of freedom were numbered. His power, once untouchable, was now under constant threat. On October 13, 2012, in a final twist of fate, Mexican forces ambushed his convoy in Nuevo Culiacan. In a desperate bid to escape, he ran for the hills, but his flight was cut short by a hail of bullets. In the end, he was buried beside his son, the tragic spark that had started his bloody crusade. A South Memphis tragedy. On the night of March 14, 2014, South Memphis became the stage for a clash that no one could have foreseen. In a neighborhood where tensions often ran high, a street fight among local kids quickly escalated into something far more dangerous. Tamara Plummer, a pregnant mother known for her fiery spirit, stepped into the fray wearing a bright green shirt.
Meanwhile, Tamara Plummer in the neon green shirt is seen already in the middle of the fight with a pistol in her hand.
Instead of calming the situation, she added fuel to the fire by picking sides in the fight, determined to protect her daughter at any cost.
Video shared with WREG shows a man shooting and killing a woman.
With anger in her eyes, Tamara not only cheered on the brawl, but even pulled one of the young fighters by the hair, trying to give her daughter an edge. In a moment that would change everything, she pulled out a gun, sending shockwaves through the already tense street. The sudden appearance of a deadly weapon turned the heated scuffle into a perilous battle, and everyone on the scene realized that things had gone far beyond a simple quarrel. Amid the chaos, two men arrived to try and stop the madness. One of them was John Davis, a man who had built a reputation for keeping order in these troubled streets. John tried his best to break up the fight and bring calm back to the neighborhood. However, when Tamara raised her gun high, John reacted in a split second of panic and anger. At that very moment, he shot Tamara at close range. Her lifeless body collapsed onto the pavement, and the shock rippled through everyone watching. Not wanting to let the situation end there, Tamara's daughter, Destiny Plummer, grabbed the fallen weapon. In her grief and confusion, she started firing at those around her, hitting 3 women, including one of the young fighters. What began as a local fight had now turned into a tragedy with lasting consequences. Authorities soon arrived on the scene. Both John Davis and Destiny were taken into custody. John was later convicted of first-degree murder, while Destiny faced charges of reckless endangerment. The community was left in deep mourning as they grappled with the loss of a life that could have been spared if one wrong choice had not been made. Shanitra Rayford and the Delaware gunfight. In November 2024, the 800 block of Delaware erupted with a sudden burst of violence that shocked everyone. Known for constant gang fights and stray gunfire, Delaware was a place where danger was never far away. Shanitra Rayford, a tough woman who moved to the area in 2017, believed her strong nature would keep her family safe.
The mother, who was shot less than 24 hours ago, is now sharing her unsettling story.
That night, however, fate had other plans. The trouble began when an adult urged a young child to start a fight with Shanitra's son, Andre. The child lunged and grabbed Andre by the throat, sparking fear and anger among the onlookers. Instead of trying to calm the situation, Shanitra strode over to the other child's mother. She demanded an apology and quickly reached for the legally concealed gun she carried for protection. But the scene soon escalated beyond her control. The other woman did not come alone. She arrived with a small group ready for trouble. The tension grew thick as voices raised and tempers flared. In a shocking twist, a teenage boy from the group pulled out his own gun, raising the stakes in an instant.
A teenager remains in critical condition after being shot in the head Thursday night.
Shanitra's heart pounded as the boy aimed his weapon at her, his gaze filled with cold determination. In a split second, another teenage boy from Shanitra's side snatched her gun, turning the standoff into a deadly encounter. Now, with 2 firearms pointed at each other, every moment stretched out in terror. Suddenly, the boy from the opposing group fired his gun. The sharp crack of the shot broke the night's silence, and chaos erupted on the street. A bullet struck Shanitra's arm, and in the confusion, another boy was hit in the head. Screams filled the air as people ran for cover, while Shanitra collapsed on the ground with her children watching in horror. When the police arrived moments later, they quickly arrested those involved. Shanitra later confessed that she was terrified, not only for her own life, but for her children who witnessed the brutal violence. Even now, the memories of that night haunt the residents of Delaware. They remember the shock, fear, and heartache, and hope for a safer future in every prayer. In a world where power is measured in fear and loyalty is bought with blood, who really has the upper hand? The reckless street hustler or the calculated criminal mastermind? Let us know what you think in the comments.